How many heads do these people have? I will do anything to be a celebrity, no matter what it takes.
Listen, come closer. Let me tell you a story. A story about a girl who wanted a life she had never lived, so badly that she built one with nothing but a phone, a few borrowed clothes, and 1,000 lies. For a while, the whole world believed her. Until the truth showed up on the day she was supposed to say, I do. Sophia was not like other girls her age. While her mother woke up before the sun to fetch water and tend the small garden behind their house, Sophia lay in bed with her phone pressed close to her face, scrolling. She watched women in beautiful dresses stepping out of big cars. She watched girls showing off gold jewelry, pink bedrooms, and plates of expensive food. And every single morning, she whispered the same thing to herself. One day, that will be me. But she never asked how. She only dreamed of when. Her mother, a quiet and tired woman named Grace, had worked hard all her life. Her hands were rough. Her back was always bent. But her heart was full of love for her only daughter. She cooked, she cleaned, she sold vegetables at the roadside market, also Sophia could have something to eat and a roof over her head. But Sophia never noticed. To Sophia, their small home was an embarrassment. Their simple meals were a shame. She would look at her cracked phone screen and sigh loudly, as if the whole world had treated her unfairly. Mama, she would say, sucking her teeth, when are we going to stop living like this? Grace would look at her daughter and say nothing for a long moment. Then she would speak softly. Sophia, the day you start working is the day your life will change. But Sophia would roll her eyes and go back to her phone. She did not want to work. She wanted to be discovered. She wanted someone to see her beauty and hand her a better life on a silver plate. She spent her days taking photos of herself, pouting her lips, tilting her head, using filters to make her skin glow and her eyes sparkle. She posted the photos online, but only 12 people followed her. 12. And 2 of them were her cousins. Then one afternoon, Grace sat down beside Sophia and held both her hands. I have spoken to my sister in the city, Grace said carefully. Your Auntie Rose. She has a clothing shop. She says you can come and help her and learn something. Please, Sophia. Go and make something of yourself. Sophia looked up from her phone slowly. The city. Just that one word made something light up behind her eyes. Not because she wanted to walk, but because she had seen the city girls on Instagram, the lights, the malls, the restaurants, the glamour. She smiled slowly. Okay, Mama, she said sweetly. I will go. Grace hugged her daughter tight, not knowing she had just handed a dreamer a stage. Before we continue this story, take a second to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. I share powerful stories like this every week, stories that will make you think, feel, and sometimes even change the way you see the world. The city hit Sophia like a wave. The noise, the lights, the tall buildings, the cars moving in every direction, it was nothing like home. She stood at the bus stop with her one small bag and turned in a slow circle, eyes wide open, heart beating fast. This was it. This was the life she had seen on her phone screen. And now she was standing right inside it. Auntie Rose came to pick her up, a short, busy woman in a neat dress with reading glasses pushed to the top of her head. She hugged Sophia quickly and said, Welcome. You will work hard here. I hope you are ready. Sophia smiled and nodded. But in her heart, she was already planning her first photo shoot. Auntie Rose's shop was small but tidy. She sold dresses, blouses, and shoes, not the expensive kind, but quality things that real people could afford. She woke up at 5 in the morning to prepare, opened the shop by 8, and closed at sunset. She expected Sophia to do the same. But Sophia dragged herself out of bed late, arranged the clothes slowly, and spent most of her time sitting behind the counter staring at her phone. Sophia. Auntie Rose would clap her hands sharply. Wake up. Customers are waiting. Sophia would jump and pretend to be busy. But the moment Rose turned her back, the phone came out again. It was at the shop that Sophia met Tonya and Ruth. They came in one afternoon, loud, laughing, wearing sunglasses indoors and taking photos of everything. They were not rich. But they looked rich. That was the difference. Tonya wore a designer bag that she had borrowed from a friend. Ruth's shoes had a famous logo, but she had bought them second-hand from an online sale. They had mastered something that Sophia had not yet learned, how to look wealthy without spending a single coin of real wealth. When they saw Sophia standing behind the counter in her plain top, they smiled like wolves. "Girl," Tonya said, tilting her sunglasses down her nose, "you are too pretty to be standing behind a counter." From that day, the three of them became inseparable. Tonya and Ruth showed Sophia everything. They taught her how to take photos from angles that hid the small apartment and showed only the nice lamp in the corner. They taught her which restaurants had beautiful interiors where you could sit, order just a glass of juice, take 30 photos, and leave. They showed her how to borrow clothes from Auntie Rose's shop, just for a photo, then return them before Rose noticed. "Social media is a stage," Tonya told her one evening, blowing on her nails. "You don't live on a stage. You just perform on it." Sophia listened to every word like a student hearing her life's calling for the very first time. Sophia's first big photo set happened on a Saturday. Tonya and Ruth took her to a fancy hotel lobby. They walked in confidently, sat on the velvet chairs near the fountain, and spent 2 hours taking photos. Sophia wore a borrowed red dress from Auntie Rose's shop. She held a glass of water with lemon in it like it was champagne. Ruth stood on a chair to shoot from above. Tonya arranged Sophia's hair between every photo. When they were done, Sophia looked at the pictures and felt something she had never felt before: powerful. Beautiful. Like somebody. That night, she posted 8 photos with a caption that said, "Living my best life sparkles, God has been so good, folded hands." By morning, she had 300 new followers. Comments flooded in. "You are so beautiful. What hotel is this? Goals. Slay Queen. I want your life." Sophia screamed into her pillow with joy. She read every comment 3 times. She replied to each one carefully. She felt like she had swallowed sunshine. For the first time in her life, strangers were looking at her and admiring her and wishing they were her. The feeling was like a drug. And like all drugs, the moment it faded, she needed more. She became bolder. One week she posed in front of a car dealership, pretending the cars behind her were hers. Another week she stood outside a big office building in a blazer, suggesting she worked somewhere important. She went to a supermarket and filled a trolley with expensive items: chocolate, imported drinks, fancy cheese, pushed it around while Tonya filmed her, then quietly put everything back before paying for only a small bottle of water. The followers grew. 500. 1,000. 3,000. 5,000. People called her an influencer. They called her a rich girl. They called her inspiration. And Sophia believed every word. But back at Auntie Rose's house, the real Sophia still ate simple food. By the 6th month, Sophia's follower count had crossed 10,000. Brands were beginning to send her small packages, a cream here, a hair product there. Not much money, but enough to make her feel validated. And that validation made her dangerous. She told Auntie Rose one Sunday afternoon that she was moving out. Rose stood at the kitchen doorway with her arms folded. "Moving out to where?" she asked quietly. "I found a place," Sophia said, packing her things without looking up. "I need my own space. I am a content creator now. I need space to work." Rose was silent for a long moment. "Sophia, you have not paid me what you owe. You barely help in the shop anymore. Who is paying for this new place? Sophia smiled tightly. Auntie, trust me. I have it handled. She did not have it handled. The apartment she rented was a single room in a modest block on a noisy street. The walls were thin. The water ran cold. The window looked directly into the back of another building. But on her Instagram page, that same apartment looked like a penthouse. She hung fairy lights around one corner and called it her cozy reading nook. She placed a single orchid plant on the windowsill and photographed it against the morning light. She bought one expensive-looking throw pillow and positioned it carefully on the bed every time she took a photo. She never showed the full room. Only the corners. Only the carefully arranged corners. And her followers loved it. Apartment goals. She is really living. I love her aesthetic. Tonya and Ruth came over and laughed at how clever it all was. They ate noodles on the floor out of the camera's view and posted videos of Sophia sipping herbal tea in a silk robe, a robe Ruth had brought from her own house. We are geniuses, Ruth laughed, scrolling through the comments. Tonya clinked her cup against Sophia's. The world sees what we show them, she said. And we show them what they want to see. But underneath the laughter, even Tonya noticed something changing in Sophia. She was no longer performing for fun. She had started to believe her own performance. The cracks were already there, invisible, like a wall that looks solid but has no foundation. Sophia had begun to feel genuine shame when her phone battery died in public. She avoided calls from her mother because she did not want Grace to hear the noise of her real neighborhood. She stopped going to Auntie Rose's shop entirely. She told online followers that she was taking a break from her busy schedule. She had no schedule. She had no income. She had a phone, a ring light, a borrowed robe, and a single orchid. But online, she was somebody. And that somebody was the only version of herself she could bear to be anymore. His name was Gerard. He was 41 years old, quietly wealthy, and recently divorced. He ran a successful supply business, drove a modest car despite his money, and lived alone in a large house that felt too empty. His daughter had once shown him Instagram and laughed at how little he understood social media. But one evening, bored and lonely, he downloaded the app. He scrolled through it slowly, the way a man walks through a museum, unhurried, curious. And then he stopped. There was Sophia. Her smile in the photo was bright and warm. The caption read, "Working hard and staying grateful, folded hands. Something about her made him pause. He followed her. He watched her stories for 2 weeks before he sent a message. He was not reckless, he was cautious by nature. He noticed she posted about mornings, about good values, about hard work. He saw photos of her in what looked like a nice apartment, dressed well, smiling genuinely. He thought she was a woman who had built something for herself. A woman who would understand his world. When he finally sent a message, it was simple: "I have been following your content for a while. You seem like a genuine person. Would you like to talk sometime?" Sophia stared at the message for 5 whole minutes. Then she screenshotted it and sent it to Tonya and Ruth. "Girls. A whole man. Look at his profile." They met for coffee first. Sophia wore a dress borrowed from Tonya and arrived 10 minutes early so she could choose the best seat, the one near the window, with the nicest light. When Gerard walked in, she was surprised. He was not flashy. He wore a simple shirt and clean shoes. He sat down, looked at her directly, and said, "You look exactly like your photos." "That's rare." Sophia laughed nervously. She spent the whole date performing, speaking carefully, using words she had practiced, laughing at the right moments, referencing things she had pretended to know about on Instagram. Gerard was charmed. But what charmed him was not the performance. It was the few small moments when Sophia forgot to perform, the way she laughed too loudly at one point, the way she looked genuinely confused when the waiter spoke French, the way her eyes softened when he spoke about his daughter. They began to date. Gerard was kind and steady. He took her to real restaurants, not for photos but for conversation. He called her in the evenings just to talk. He told her about his life honestly, the divorce, the loneliness, the work. And Sophia listened, nodded, and continued the lie. She told him she ran an online lifestyle brand. She told him her apartment was just a small personal space while she worked on a bigger project. She told him her family was comfortable. She said these things smoothly, without flinching, because she had practiced them so many times in her head that they no longer felt completely like lies. They felt like the story she was supposed to have. You see how Sophia's life started changing. But what happened next shocked everyone. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story so far, make sure you subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow so I can keep bringing you more stories like this. 8 months after they met, Gerard proposed. It was a quiet dinner at his house, not a grand public gesture, because Gerard was not a grand public gesture kind of man. He cooked himself, which surprised Sophia deeply. He set the table with candles and placed a small ring box beside her glass. When she looked up, he was already on one knee. "Sophia," he said, his voice steady but soft, "I am not a perfect man. But I know a good woman when I meet one. I want to build something real with you. Will you marry me?" Sophia felt something strange happen in that moment, something that had nothing to do with followers or filters or borrowed clothes. Something real pressed against her chest. Something that felt like guilt. She said yes. The ring was beautiful. She photographed it the moment she got home, close up, with her fairy lights blurring softly in the background, and posted it with the caption, "He asked. I said yes. God is good." Folded hands ring. The post got 20,000 likes overnight. Comments poured in like a river. "I knew it. Couple goals. Rich girl found her match. She deserves this." Tonya and Ruth came over screaming and jumping. Ruth opened a small bottle of wine she had brought. Tonya hugged Sophia tight. "You did it," Tonya whispered. "You actually did it." But even as they celebrated, a small, quiet part of Sophia, the part that was still the village girl who ate simple food and washed her clothes by hand, sat in the corner of her chest and said nothing. Just watched. Gerard began to involve Sophia in the wedding plans. He introduced her to his sister, Margaret, who was warm but sharp-eyed. Margaret looked at Sophia the way experienced women look at things they are not yet sure about, not with hostility, but with careful attention. She asked Sophia questions that felt like tests. "Where did you go to school? What exactly does your business involve? Have you introduced Gerard to your family yet?" Sophia answered smoothly, redirecting, laughing lightly, changing the subject with charm. Margaret smiled back. But her eyes did not change. Gerard also asked to visit Sophia's mother. Sophia panicked quietly. She had been sending her mother small amounts of money, nothing compared to what her followers believed she earned, and had told Grace only that she was doing well in the city. She had never told her mother about Gerard. When she finally called Grace to explain, Grace was quiet on the phone for a very long time. Then she said, "Sophia, tell me the truth. Is this man real? Do you love him?" Sophia felt her throat tighten. "Yes, Mama," she said softly. "He is real?" Grace was silent again. "Then, does he know who you really are?" Sophia closed her eyes. "He knows me, Mama," she said. But even she wasn't sure what that meant anymore. The wedding was set for 3 months away. Gerard spared no expense. He booked a beautiful venue with tall windows and white flowers. He hired a caterer, a photographer, a live band. He invited 120 guests, family, business colleagues, old friends. Sophia's side of the guest list was smaller. She invited Tonya, Ruth, a few online friends she had met but barely knew, and reluctantly, her mother Grace and Auntie Rose. Gerard offered to pay for Grace and Rose to travel in comfort. Sophia did not know how to feel about her two worlds finally moving toward each other like two trains on the same track. As the wedding grew closer, Sophia began to have dreams. In the dreams, she was always standing in the middle of a crowd in her wedding dress when someone walked up and pulled at the dress, and it came off, and underneath she was wearing her old village clothes, the faded ones from years ago. She would wake up breathless, heart pounding, lying still in the dark of a small apartment while the city noise hummed outside. She told herself it was just nerves. She told herself that once she was married to Gerard, everything would adjust. She would slowly reveal the real Sophia, carefully, bit by bit, and by then, he would love her too much to be angry. But then something happened that she had not planned for. A girl from her village, a girl named Nkechi who had grown up 3 houses away from Sophia, had moved to the city 2 years earlier for university. Nkechi had seen Sophia's Instagram page months ago and had smiled to herself, recognizing the performance for what it was. She had said nothing. But when a mutual friend sent her the wedding announcement post, with 5,000 comments congratulating the successful lifestyle influencer on her beautiful journey, Nkechi stared at the screen for a long time. She thought about the right thing to do. She prayed about it. Then she sent Sophia a private message. Sophia, I know you. I'm happy for you. But I think you should tell Gerard the truth before the wedding. Because the truth always arrives, it just chooses its own day. Sophia read the message 3 times. Then she blocked Nkechi. She sat on her bed shaking, her hands trembling around the phone. She told herself Nkechi was jealous. She told herself people from home always wanted to pull you down when you were rising. But she could not sleep that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city, and for the first time in a very long time, she talked to God. Not a performance prayer. A real one. Quiet, shapeless, desperate. Please, she whispered to the ceiling. Please let this work. Please don't let me lose this. But the ceiling gave her no answer. And the morning came anyway. The morning of the wedding was the most beautiful morning Sophia had ever seen. Sunlight came through the tall windows of the bridal suite that Gerard had booked for her. Tonya and Ruth did her makeup and hair, laughing, playing music, spraying perfume into the air. Rose sat in the corner watching quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Grace sat beside Rose, dressed in her best fabric, hands folded too. Mother and aunt. Both quiet. Both watching. Sophia looked at herself in the mirror in her wedding dress, a white gown with small pearls around the neckline that Gerard had chosen with her, and she felt beautiful. Truly, genuinely beautiful. Not filter beautiful. Not angle beautiful. Just beautiful. And for one full moment, the fear went away. She looked at her mother's reflection in the mirror and Grace's eyes were full of tears. You look like an angel, Grace whispered. Sophia turned and went to her mother and held her, and the two of them stood still for a moment, just breathing. Grace pressed her lips to Sophia's ear and whispered, "Whatever happens today, I love you. That never changes." Sophia pulled back and looked at her mother's face. Something in those words felt like a warning and a comfort at the same time. They arrived at the venue to music and flowers and smiling faces. Gerard stood at the altar looking calm and happy, and when he saw Sophia walking down the aisle, his whole face changed, softened, like a man who has been waiting for something and has finally seen it arrive. Sophia walked toward him step by step, holding her flowers, managing her smile, hearing the soft gasps and murmurs of the guests. She was halfway down the aisle when she saw her, standing near the back, in a yellow dress, arms folded, face still. Nkechi. She had not been invited. But she was there. Their eyes met. Nkechi did not smile. She just looked at Sophia the way someone looks at a chapter that is about to end. Sophia kept walking. What else could she do? She reached Gerard. He took her hand and squeezed it gently. The pastor began to speak. The words moved like water, vows, promises, the sound of a future being built in public. Sophia stared at Gerard's face and thought, I will tell him. After today, I will tell him everything. And he will understand. He has to. But then she heard it. A voice from near the back of the room. Clear. Steady. Unmistakable. I am sorry. The whole room went quiet. I am sorry to do this here. But somebody has to. Nkechi walked slowly down the side aisle, her voice calm but carrying to every corner of the silent room. My name is Nkechi. I grew up in the same village as Sophia. I have known her since she was 9 years old. A murmur moved through the guests like wind through grass. Gerard turned to look at the woman walking toward them. His face was unreadable. Sophia stood perfectly still, holding her flowers so tightly that her knuckles changed color. Tonya and Ruth sat frozen in the front seats. Rose closed her eyes. Grace lowered her head. Sophia is not who she has shown on social media, Nkechi continued, her voice never rising, never angry, just honest, like someone reading from a document. The apartments, the lifestyle, the success, it was all staged. Borrowed clothes. Careful angles. Restaurant lobbies for photos she never paid for. She is not a wealthy lifestyle influencer. She is a young woman from a simple home who was too afraid to be herself. She stopped walking and looked directly at Gerard. This man deserves to know who he is marrying. Not the Instagram version. The real one. The room exploded. Not with shouting, with that particular silence that is louder than noise. People shifted in their seats. Someone whispered to someone else. A woman near the back stood up and started scrolling through her phone, pulling up Sophia's Instagram, holding it up to her husband to show him. Gerard had not moved. He was looking at Sophia. Just looking at her. Not with rage. Not with cruelty. With something far worse, confusion. Searching. Like a man who thought he had been reading one book and has just discovered the cover was wrong. Sophia, he said quietly, in a voice meant only for her. Is this true? Sophia opened her mouth. She had spent 2 years preparing performances. She had rehearsed this moment in her dreams 100 times, the moment someone exposed her, and in every version she had a clever response. A deflection. A counter story. But standing there in her wedding dress, in front of 120 people, with her mother's head bowed and her auntie's eyes closed and Gerard's searching face right in front of her, every performance she had ever prepared dissolved. And what was left was just Sophia. Just the girl from the village who had never believed she was enough. She felt the first tear fall before she knew she was crying. Yes, she whispered. It is true. What happened next was not what anyone expected, least of all Sophia. Gerard did not walk away. He did not shout. He did not rip the ring from her finger dramatically the way the guests may have hoped. He stood very still for a long moment. Then he exhaled. Slowly. Like a man setting down something heavy. He looked at Sophia's still-strict face, no filter, no ring light, no borrowed dress could have staged what he was looking at now, and he said something very quietly, something only she could hear. Then he stepped back and spoke to the room. I need everyone to please give us a moment. He took Sophia's hand and walked her off the altar, through a side door, into a small quiet room away from all the watching eyes. They were alone. Gerard sat down on a chair and was quiet for a long time. Sophia stood with her flowers hanging at her side, mascara tracing slow lines down her face. Finally Gerard spoke. Why? He asked simply. Not angrily. Just truly wanting to understand. And Sophia, for the first time in longer than she could remember, told the truth. All of it. The village. Her mother's rough hands. The scrolling, the dreaming, the shame of feeling like she was never enough. Tonya and Ruth and the hotel lobbies. The borrowed robe. The single orchid. The fake apartment corners. She told him everything and she did not once try to make herself look better as she told it. When she was finished, the room was very quiet. Gerard leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and looked at the floor. Then he looked up at her. "The woman I fell in love with," he said slowly, laughed too loud at dinner one night and covered her mouth afterward because she was embarrassed. She looked genuinely confused when the waiter spoke French. "She listened when I talked about my daughter without immediately giving advice." He paused. "That woman was real. Was she you?" Sophia wiped her face with the back of her hand, ruining the last of her makeup, and nodded. "Yes," she said. "That was me." Gerard was quiet again. "Then I did not fall in love with Instagram," he said at last. "I fell in love with the moments you forgot to perform." He stood up. "But I need time. I cannot walk back out there today and pretend that what just happened did not happen. I need time, Sophia. And so do you." The wedding did not continue that day. Guests went home quiet and unsettled, some disappointed, some, the honest ones, quietly moved by what they had witnessed. Sophia's Instagram notifications exploded, but for the first time in 2 years, she did not look at her phone. She sat with her mother in that small side room, just the two of them, and Grace held her daughter the way she had held her when she was small and scared of the dark. Sophia cried until there was nothing left to cry. And then she was just quiet. Empty in the way a cup is empty just before someone fills it. In the weeks that followed, Sophia did something she had never done in the city. She went back to Auntie Rose's shop. She did not post it online. She showed up, put on a plain apron, and began to arrange the clothes on the rail. Rose came out from the back room, looked at her for a moment, and said nothing except, "The new dresses need steaming." Sophia picked up the steamer. She called her mother every evening. She stopped boring a life and started building one, small, unglamorous, honest. She posted one photo that month. Just herself, no filter, sitting on the floor of the shop eating rice from a plastic container. The caption read, "Starting over. For real this time." It got more genuine comments than anything she had ever posted. And Kechi, the girl in the yellow dress, was the first one to like it. Gerard came back. Not immediately. But he came back. He came one afternoon to the shop, unannounced, and stood in the doorway until Sophia looked up from the rail of dresses. He did not make a speech. He simply said, "Have dinner with me tonight. As yourself." And Sophia looked at him, no ring light, no borrowed clothes, no rehearsed smile, and said yes. That night they sat across from each other in a small, ordinary restaurant and they talked. Really talked. About fear and shame and loneliness and the distance between who we are and who we wish we were. And somewhere between the starter and the main course, they both began to laugh. Quietly at first. Then properly. The way two people laugh when they finally stop pretending and discover they actually like what they find. The real wedding happened 4 months later. Small. Simple. 40 people. Sophia wore a dress she had bought herself, nothing borrowed, nothing staged. Her mother sat in the front row with steady eyes and a full heart. Auntie Rose sat beside her, wearing her good fabric and her reading glasses pushed up on her head. And when the pastor asked if anyone had objections, the room stayed perfectly, beautifully quiet. Because the truth had already spoken. And it had given them something no performance ever could. A real beginning. And that's the story of Sophia, a girl who learned the hard way that a fake life can never replace a real one. If this story taught you something, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Sophia?